Hi guys, welcome to Coastal Conservative News, CCN right here. We have a special segment today, obviously joined with Ali Leger and the wonderful school board member who's kind of been trailblazing for quite a while, Miss Bridget Ziegler. Thank you for joining us on CCN.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here with you guys. Love you guys. So I'm excited about what you guys are doing. It's important work.
Yes, well, we're glad to have really a direct connection to the community to be able to bring you the stories that matter most that you can't always find on other media platforms. So I want to introduce yourself to, I'm sure our viewers all know who you are, but how you came about being, going from mom to school board member. You've been in the trenches for a while.
Yeah. So I worked in private sector. I worked in insurance. I was not an educator. And my first go at this was back in 2014.
Wow.
My oldest is now in 6th grade, so she was 8-month-old at the time. And there was a vacancy, and my husband, who is active in politics, mentioned to me, came in, my daughter was on the floor, and he said, "You should run for school board." I'm like, "That's crazy. You're just getting into the routine of having a baby." And he's like, "No, you should. We're parents now. Education is critical to their development," which I agree with. And my mom's side's all lots of educators on that side. So I had 24 hours to think about it, just to give anyone a sense of this, and I'll go back to that. But I remember asking my dad and my parents what they thought, and they said, "You're going to open yourself up to a lot of scrutiny." And I said, "It'll be fine."
Yeah.
I actually worked through college and continued to be very successful, so I never finished college, which I was always embarrassed of, but I was very successful and knew that was going to be something that was going to come out. And I think that's an important piece when people always talk themselves out of why not to run. Yes. So I'll put that out there, that everyone's going to have something that they don't necessarily want to highlight, but actually I think it created a benefit to me in my life. So either way, so I decided to do it. So I stepped off that ledge, and it was an amazing journey. I actually applied for the appointment and also filed to run. So I was Governor Rick Scott was our governor at the time, and there's a lot of people who applied, and they were your standard, longtime administrators, educators, or what have you. I was 31 at the time, so
it's a baby.
It's a long time. And Rick Scott, who I'm a big fan of, and he said that I remember in the interview, he's like, "Are you an educator?" I said, "No," and he said, "That's a good thing." They wanted outside, they wanted parents, and so from the get-go, my whole philosophy was bringing an outside perspective, but from the parent side. I wanted us to have a seat at the table, and while I got harangued for not having my child wasn't school age yet, we still had, but you see how long government works. It takes a long time. We'll talk about that. So it was a perfect time to get in, and there's still obviously a lot of work to do. So I won, very close election. I actually went to a runoff. It was a crowded race, and then my second election, I ran again. I've had 2 babies since. And the third time, I actually wasn't going to run, but it was in 22, and there was so much changing. And there was an opportunity for us to flip our board, and Sarasota is a conservative county, very conservative county. And for years, when I got on the board, it was a very liberal board. Yes. Most people didn't know that because we have a very good district, so no one was really paying attention back then. When I got there were so many rocks to lift up, and I did it, and they did not like that at all. And so it was walking into the Mean Girls Club pretty regularly, but I share all these things because, again, there's a million reasons why people can talk themselves out of running, and you'll surprise yourself when you go into it, and so, and it's for our kids. So it's been an incredible journey, and we flipped the board to a 4-1 in 22. Then, unfortunately, went to a 3-2 in 24. And now we had a vacancy, and we had another appointment, so we're still at a solid 3-2.
Well, and I think people always, when you look at education, you think it's not political. It's not political. Even in the state of Florida, you don't run for school board with a D or an R next to your name. So that works in 2 ways. You think, okay, we're not bringing politics right then into the classroom, but you're also, when you go to the ballot box, you're not informed. If you're always voting R all the way down the ballot, you don't know who to run for. Right. This works to the leftist, I think, to their agenda.
That's it. Yeah. They design it that way. A lot of times these elections are not on general elections or when you would line up with primaries, so the voter participation is very low. and special elections all the time. I mean, it is designed like this, not just here, across the country. And the nonpartisan piece, you could look at different places in the country or even the state where it would hurt Republicans or conservatives, which may be true. Right. But at the end of the day, I want voters to be informed, and we're policymakers. It's wild to me that you have the supervisor of elections actually has a partisan alignment, which you would think that one definitely
shouldn't be.
Yes, but you're a policymaker, and there's a different philosophy. I mean, even obviously there's spectrum, Republican, Democrat, more than ever now. But usually it's limited government principles or big government. I mean, that's really the big, and for education, and that's a huge component. So I think it's definitely benefited our Democratic Party locally.
Right. Yeah.
And until we kind of outed all of them on what was really happening, they were able to coast for a long time. And that's happens in a lot of different counties.
Well, in 2022, it was the rise of parents. Parents got a first-class view in what was going on behind the scenes in education. And at 22, our governor, amazing governor, came out very strong, first in the nation to actually endorse school board candidates. I was the first, actually. Yeah. That was pretty cool. But, so what were some of your challenges when you sat on the board this last time you were elected?
So the most recent time I was elected, I was going to say, it's been much better. I mean, you get better with time, and you know.
There's a lot of backlash in 22.
Well, yes, but I was used to it at that point. So there's always been backlash. I think that it was exciting for me because now we had like a rallying cry in the world, this country's most popular governor who, for a long time, even there are a lot of allies and friends that sat in the legislature or even in the governor's office, but prior to 22, when you'd come to them about certain issues, particularly the cultural issues, a lot of legislators got very uneasy, very uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable taking that challenge, and it was very frustrating because they were very impactful to our kids, and you see it like every day. And so DeSantis was a breath of fresh air because he took the bull by his horns. I think he has 2 young kids, and I think that makes a huge difference, and he sees the impact. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I may be masochistic, I don't know, but I thought it was a lot of fun, and we had a lot more people, COVID made a huge impact too, because even now that people have gone back to their lives, and it's like, I don't want COVID to happen. I don't want anything like that to happen again, but it helps bring awareness and really energy to people who want to just go about their daily lives, which I completely understand. Meanwhile, we have ongoing activists, have been the case for a century on the left, and they want everyone else to just go back home and do their stuff and let them control it. And so the benefit of that moment was we had an uprising of awareness and engagement and activism that, for me, I want to keep alive because this is not an election cycle thing. It is a perpetual fight, and they will win if we don't keep people engaged. And I'm not saying everyone has to show up every single day, but we need people aware. We need to continue to communicate and activate and get people to run for office.
So community engagement and support from your constituents as a board member is highly important to you.
It's very important. And so it's interesting. I find that a lot of times, not just locally, but where we work so hard to get people elected and then everyone goes back to their daily lives, which again, I'll have this debate with people and they're like, well, that's what they did. They elected you, now you go fight. But I think you have to remember you're electing individuals who aren't necessarily aware what they're walking into. It is the lion's den, make no mistake. Yes. And even the strongest spine starts to bend a little, and there's a lot of psychology involved where you are up there and you want to be cordial with people you're working with. I think a lot of times you see people cave, and they want to be polite. And I know we've talked about this before. And I believe that's exploited. And so, and I can but we need to fight back. I mean, you can say we respectfully disagree, but I'm going to hold the line. Right. But you also, again, if I go back, you had ongoing activists that were always involved, whether they were visible or not, on the left. Yes. The mom uprising was new. Those were not engaged political people ever. It was a whole new voting bloc.
It was the untapped voting bloc.
Correct. Now,
and it's the largest in our nation.
Exactly, and it actually was swung across different partisan. It was all gives me goosebumps. It was focused on parents. And what's interesting is you'll see the activists put on a mom shirt with a different color, and I'm like, but you guys didn't add. We added, and you have a whole new engagement. But those people also wanted to be it's exhausting. And they're like, all right, we won. We're going to to go back. And why this is important is that the other people keep coming back and they're filling up the chambers. And so not just on our school board, but across the state or country, that plays into the minds of board members. They think that's their community, and it's not. And so I always encourage people in your community in Sarasota, like, even if you can't show up, send a message to the board members, good job, or like ask them a question or some encouragement to hold the line. Remember, this is what we elected you to do. Because what happens is it's not that they forget, but that pressure is right in their faces. I mean, you guys have been to board meetings, you see how it is. And so the most powerful impact, I think, is when we had a series of thousands of emails come in when we did the Title IX rebuttal against Biden, and a resolution to say we're not adopting the crazy Title IX, Biden's rewrite. And we didn't have the chambers filled with people, but we had over 1,200, maybe 2,000 emails within 24 hours. Saying, and they weren't copy and paste. That's what the other thing. It was an individual, all these emails saying, please, absolutely, like for their daughters, protect sports, common sense, all of that. And so that kind of activity is valuable for us to continue to make strides because, again, it's not an election cycle. It is in perpetual, like we have to be focused on this nonstop.
Well, and I've even heard at our Sarasota school board meetings, you've got school board member Tom Edwards that will say multiple times, you've heard from the community. This is what they think. And I'm looking behind me. Yes, the rows are filled with very much activists, but they don't represent even the voting bloc here in Sarasota. So I think part of the call is, listen, the mask mandate that Tom Edwards conspired to do, basically masking your children and force masking them, that cost something to every parent who had to try to put that mask on a child and send them to school, to every educator who had to try to keep a mask on a 5-year-old. It cost something, and so they came out in droves. And now that they've kind of gotten to this complacency, and I do hear this a lot, it's like, oh, well, things are good now. We got DeSantis, we got the majority. To be able to show up and say, we're here, we're with you, good job. Even if that's it, I think Bill Neese one time came up and that's all he said. I just want to say good job. That counts for something because people are listening at home. The leftist media wants to pull those clips that say this many people showed up and they said, we have to still show up strong. So it does matter when once you're elected that you see that your voting bloc is still behind you, right?
100%. I think it gives them, strengthens their spine. I mean, again, a lot of this is new. And people by nature are risk adverse, and a lot of people aren't confrontational. And a lot of people we fight to get in are good people who have good values and believe in the importance of education and community. And they're not like expecting to be scrappy up there, and so, but it really, that's what it is.
Insert Allie and I. I'm just kidding.
Well, and again, having someone like that on every board is vital.
It is very important.
And then having some, but that support builds so much confidence and a reminder. And it's not like, hey, a threatening component. Now, it can get that point where people start just voting completely opposite of what they ran for. But a reminder of, hey, this is what you ran on. You're an extension of my voice. That is why I gave you my vote, which as an elected official, it's an honor to have that trust put in you, but it's also a responsibility. And so reminding them of what they ran on, what you voted, what you put them forward, and that you guys are there to have their back, it pays dividends. And the other, the media stuff we could talk about because it's,
it's part of the reason.
Look, Sarasota Board has made international news, okay? You guys have made national news.
And we will continue to.
International news with a lot of
Thank you, Tom Edwards. We just want to say.
We're going to continue to do that,
Well, and so I want to talk about what just recently took place. So those that maybe have been following the school board, we did lose a seat in this last election. You can argue what the reasoning. You can argue the reasoning, but we're supposed to have a local party for a reason to get involved in this. And in my opinion, it was they negated their derelict of duty. But so we lost Karen Rose. She was the chair. She was great.
Very good.
And now there's a seat opening because Tim Enos is stepping down. So then the governor reaches in and appoints Karen Rose back to the board. What do you?
That's awesome.
Explain that process and what you think that's going to bring now.
I couldn't be more excited. I think when we lost Karen, it was a major loss and something I want to make sure people understood how valuable she was. What's actually interesting is you want a board that's diverse in experience, and I like one that's aligned in philosophy, meaning like parents are the true, they are and that you want limited government principles, but different perspectives of experience, business backgrounds, some people, parents of different ages, etc. But we never had an educator at all in the time I was on the board.
Oh, wow.
Not one.
Interesting.
So in 22, when she ran, I may have the dates, the years, because she ran a couple times. It was finally like we need somebody who, again, aligns with the principles of limited government and that understands and respects and will fight and preserve parental rights and focus on core instruction and not activism. But also there's a whole litany of data and like instruction or curriculum components that having somebody who understands that is really important that you also align with. Again, that's a key piece because then you can trust where they're coming forward. And if there is any gamesmanship or information, data being presented to you, which happens all the time in districts, all the time, if you, you can make data tell whatever story you want. And so if you don't have someone that really ultimately understands it or knows where to look, it can be challenging. And
or
so
knows the right questions to ask.
Exactly. And so, and that takes time if you're not from the inside, but if you have somebody from the inside, that does. So she was incredibly valuable. She was very respected in that manner. So having her back is a glorious moment. And it's, there's no learning curve. And we have, 12 months until essentially, maybe a little bit more, until the next election. No, actually, no, we don't because it's August.
Yeah.
And that's only so many meetings. And, I'm very interested in making sure we codify a lot of things that we've been able to do. Over the last 10 years. I mean, when it comes to preserving parental rights, I really need to ensure that there's no more activism taking place in our schools. The political piece that you said. Yes. Boards can be political if they want, but as long as we put a dome over the academics, like in the schools, that is not, they are not supposed to be activism centers.
Right.
Elected officials, you're going to always have politics. You're always going to. It's inevitable. I think people use it as a scapegoat, like, oh, this is being political. Well, okay, to own it, but I don't want it in our schools. And unfortunately, the left has utilized our schools as activism centers. You see it. They may have they may be a little bit more subtle about it because of the legislation that's taken place in Florida. But trust me, everyone, even in a conservative county with a majority conservative school board, with an amazing governor and an amazing president in office, they're not letting go of their power grab of schools. And that is why you have to be on it at all times.
Well, it's because you educate the child, so goes the soul of the nation.
100%.
And you gear how the nation is transformed through education. So if you're teaching them the proper things on how to be successful in life after school, how to be good, productive citizens, and not dependent on government, then you have a country that is worth, saving and moving forward. But if not, you're teaching them the complete opposite: socialism, Marxism, Zen what is it?
Maoist,
all of the
It's-
things. Then you end up with a constituents or a population that is more dependent on government and allows government essentially to be mom and dad. It's like daddy government, and we can't have that.
I wanted to get your specific opinion because we've not talked about this, but it's been talked about in our community here in Sarasota. Of course, making headlines again. One of our school board members, Tom Edwards, representative from District 3, is now going to be the executive director of Pride SRQ, so obviously that is very LGBTQ driven, and that's his right to do so. But what is the community right in questioning that? Does that bring? I know he had a lot to say about your interactions with Moms for Liberty, So I'm wondering how that's going to impact, or if you think it could potentially impact our schools.
I wouldn't put it past him, and so in my mind, and I will be very vocal about this. Again, our schools are there to be learning environments. We have a diverse community that have different cultures are represented, different religious beliefs, and we have a responsibility to allow that to be preserved for the home, unequivocally.
Right.
And so often there has been this attempt to utilize schools to indoctrinate kids for things that are way outside the realm of education and in complete direct conflict of what most families are teaching their children. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with the alphabet activism.
Right.
And we've seen that. I mean, part of my journey of the Parents' Bill of Rights was a large parcel of seeing the activity that they were utilizing our schools for in the gender cults. And I could talk to you guys about that for hours. And that's really where all of my concern comes from. I mean, all the other things they just don't have a place of discussion at school.
Right, exactly.
How they've exploited the gender ideology in schools is criminal. And again, I could go on and on about that. But that is why, in my mind, having someone like Mr. Edwards, who has been on a mic, I might not quote it right, but this was in 22, where he's at some event saying, after all this legislation pro-parental rights curriculum, making sure that we're focusing on academics and not indoctrination. His statements of, I'm working from the inside in a strategic way, and I'm woke. And I feel like you know the quote better than I do. But
I'm building coalitions to work from the inside and flying under the radar of Governor DeSantis. And I mean, just blatantly has said this, and then turned around and ran as a moderate, which is
oh my gosh,
which is why it behoves me to see us not have that D or R next to a name here in the state of Florida. It is.
And to be fair, in the past there have been members of the board that were registered Republicans, would show up to Republican clubs, all sorts of things. They were in no way, shape, or form a conservative, a common sense conservative, limited government, and you find that a lot. So I think it goes down to what the people are saying, believe them. And so with that situation, and just behaviors that I've seen as a board member and what he's engaged in, very much meddling into the operations, which is not a board member's role. It's accountability and oversight.
Right.
Is alarming. And so for me, I'm just, I want to make sure we have proper safeguards for anybody.
Yes.
That they should not be overstepping into that and not be putting in any items that are inappropriate, whether it be after school programs or whether it be inside our schools. And he should be, I'll vocally make it clear that it'll be a discussion, and if anyone sees anything, that's the problem. We've made great strides in the last 2 years to really refocus our efforts and make it clear that activism is not a part of the day in Sarasota County schools. And if you're an educator and you got into education for that, this is not the district for you. I want to be very clear. It is not the district for you, and I will do everything I can to make sure that is repeated.
Yeah.
And anyone who tries to embark in that and utilize our schools for that will be held accountable, and that includes Tom Edwards.
I just want to say our Sarasota GOP did put out a call to ask him to resign. They felt it was a conflict of interest. I hope our Sarasota GOP stays just as active as we go into election season with school boards.
Yeah.
But
I focus on the election piece. Let's focus on getting them in.
Let's drive the bus home. Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you, so when I go to school board meetings and I'm watching people that get up to talk, some of them I know do live in Sarasota, whether we agree or agree to disagree. Is there ever an opportunity at the school board meetings to institute people saying what county they're from? Because they have done that in the past at the hospital board meetings.
So we actually do. We worked, of my time on the board, when I say public comment policy has been probably one of the most commonly discussed. And way back when, go COVID, remember the activism that was happening through National School Board Association, trickled down to the state chapters, was how to shut down the parents.
Right.
And you would see in Sarasota, they did so much as they tried to adjourn the meeting. They turned the camera on the back of their head. So condescending and just disrespectful. So
arrested them, kicked them out. It's insane.
Intimidation. And so it's very interesting when you have a change in the makeup of the board, who the community kind of pushes back on what practices for public comment. I like to say I've been very consistent.
Yes.
I am a believer in the First Amendment, and I will defend it. And you, as an elected official, voluntarily walk into a lion's den of which you will be ridiculed and called all sorts of names, ists and isms all day long.
Ists and isms,
and that's part of it, right? So I don't subscribe to the trying to guide or limit what people can say. When they come up to the board meeting, outside of literal threats or if they're not reading out of a book, I guess swear words, I suppose. But again, to me, the bar is very high.
Yeah.
And but the piece that I think is really important is to understand who we're talking to or who's talking to the board. And so if you live in another county, you're welcome to come here. But we've actually worked to our public comment policy now prioritizes, so anyone from anywhere can speak, but if you're a Sarasota County taxpayer, you are getting a priority.
Of course,
if you're a parent in Sarasota County public schools, you have a priority. If you're a member of staff, so those are all in the public comment card selection, and we should be separating it. I actually did just have a conversation because I don't know that they have been separating it the way, and that's how our policy reads.
Yeah.
So going forward, you will see a very clear component. And, I'd like to encourage people to tell us what, and it's not meant to be threatening. They have a card, we can read it, that's all public comment, but, public record. And it's an affidavit that they are signing when they're attesting that the information they're providing is accurate. And the reason is you are in a public government meeting, you want to ensure that the information you're being provided is accurate. But also we want to know, which county are you from? Right. Because it matters. Yes. And now, not that somebody from another county may have great ideas. I'm not limiting it, but a lot of times it comes down to, I am elected by Sarasota County voters. They are my constituency. I ran on a certain platform. I still stand strong. So I want to hear from them, and they will be prioritized.
So it's almost like, and I don't want to discourage anyone for coming to, just like Bridget said, it's like if you are essentially from, let's say, Moms for America, because everyone hears Moms for Liberty, and they're like, but Moms for America, or even Moms for Liberty, if you are a state chapter, if you are a state chapter chair or state director for one of these groups, and you come in and you realize, hey, this district is not operating in our, underneath what you're supposed to be doing. You're not following the law. You're not operating within your lane of your scope of practice. So as the director of this, or as the state whatever of this organization, we're coming to speak to the board to inform you this is what we're noticing from listening to our chapter chairs 100%. Or our group members. And so that's fully accepted.
100%. And I think it's really important. Remember when Matt Walsh went to Loudoun County and you had to live there and he rented an apartment? So, I'm not looking for that. I think it's just transparency. Everyone will have the ability to speak. We're not cutting off a time frame, because some people do that. We have public comment that goes on for 4 to 5 hours.
Yes.
Right. You guys were in the meeting. I'm texting Shell, and she's like, I'm still here. I'm like,
people,
it's midnight.
And a lot of boards actually limit it. And
Hillsborough County is one of them.
I fought against it, because again, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I think because you never know how the wind blows, and I think that practice is so important. And of course, people are going to find an opportunity to, I don't even know if it's weaponized, but we just want to know who's talking to us.
Yes.
But yes, I do encourage people. I've gone to other school board meetings. I don't know that I've spoken at one yet. Yes. That's always time.
Never say
but
never.
I think that's a good point, and that's why that's not the intention. It is truly saying, listen, these are our taxpayers, these are our constituents that are directly impacted by the votes that we're taking, and they need to be prioritized. And anyone else, you're welcome to come, but you're going to have to wait in line.
Yeah. I want to make it absolutely clear to those that are watching, because a majority of our audience is right here in Sarasota County, but obviously throughout the state of Florida, how dire this next election cycle is in 2026. We don't have a governor's name at the top of the ticket. So typically you and I think we're fine. The right people will get in. We're a majority stronghold Republican. The numbers all show it. But
almost every county has a liberal board
for the first time here in Sarasota County, my deepest fears are recognized. And that is that this self-proclaimed moderate who's anything but could potentially sit as the chair of our next board if we don't maintain our conservative stronghold on the board. And of course, I'm talking about Tom Edwards. So I want to gear now towards 2026 and what that race is going to look like. I know your seat is up for election. We've got the one that Karen Rose is sitting in now in District 5. That will be, as well as Robin Marinelli will be up for re-election. So talk to us a little bit about, from the inside, what you see sitting on the dais. What do you see playing out? I don't know if you're running again, but I haven't made a decision.
I'm still waiting because
So what does that look like as far as needing the community's involvement and engagement? This is real. We're this close. We're teetering.
But so before you get into that, could you explain to our audience what the importance is of a chair and what their role is?
Yeah,
because I think that's important for people to know.
So they direct the agenda. So I should say the agenda is the superintendent's agenda. They are considered a constitutional officer in the state of Florida, even though they're not elected in Sarasota and in most counties. So that is their agenda that they ultimately, because it's the management of the board. He makes a recommendation, and then he or she, and then the board votes on it. But the chair really ultimately directs that entire agenda, moving items, allowing certain items sometimes. I mean, really the authority. It really is they can drive the entire agenda of the school district. Okay. There are a number of other allowances that different districts have different rules, but a chair can create their own committee. They can create. There's a lot of different authorities. I haven't seen it done very often. It should. But there are certain times require it. Yeah. I know when I was chair years ago, shortly after the Parkland massacre, and we dealt with the whole police department and all of that upla. I did a lot. I was in the minority, and I still was able to be a chair, which is pretty remarkable. But it drove a lot of the discussion, and so there is a lot of authority. But at the end of the day, you have the votes. The votes matter, but it's presenting what the agenda rules ultimately, and what gets on the agenda, and so they can flex a significant amount of power.
Okay.
And especially ones, you'll see a lot that don't go overboard. They just look at it as I'm there to preside over a meeting.
Right.
Okay.
And
Karen
maybe,
did that very well.
And
You did that
most
very well.
see it that way.
Yeah.
But and I won't name them, but in other districts, I have seen board chairs do extraordinary things.
yeah.
And if you have someone that is very power hungry, and I think again behaviors will illustrate if it's all about one person versus the mission, or the overall intent of what voters put you there to do.
Correct.
It could be a very dangerous place for someone, and
Absolutely.
So your worst fears. I hear you. I would.
Yeah.
That would
My
it would be,
worst fears. I'll be stricken from public comment.
Well,
like, no,
I
just
think
kidding.
that again, I wear my policy positions on my sleeve. I don't. I mean, you love me or hate me, you know where I stand.
Right.
I don't believe that that's the case with a lot of people, and there's certainly. I think our board member, Mr. Edwards, is not. Incredibly transparent with some of his agendas.
Absolutely.
And if you have someone like that leading efforts, I think people just need to really be aware of what's going on. And I want things to be as transparent as possible. I want the work to be focused on, again, getting rid of all. I mean, we've done a lot. We don't really have that much more to get rid of, per se, and restore the focus on academics. But there are people with an agenda. We see it all the time with special interests. I know our special interests were our kids.
Right.
Yes.
And really getting back to education, even though they like to say it was some dark money right wing. I mean, it's really hilarious. But that's how intimidating we were.
What?
And you should be intimidated with moms, by the way, because we mean business when they come in for our kids.
Absolutely.
But there are special interests, whether it be, our union is been kind of quiet, but make no mistake, they have a lot of influence when they want to. But we have a lot of special interest groups on the left. We have a lot of factions inside of our nonprofit organizations that yielded a lot of power based on the money that used to have kind of tied into our district. I think we have good leadership now that knows that they're not going to be leveraged. But there's a lot of organizations that have an agenda, particularly to reinstitute a lot of the leftist philosophies, a lot of the things about identity politics, a lot of things about all of the.
Yes.
I'm not trying. I don't know how to label it. But
and you guys reside over a very large budget. I mean, it's 1.5 billion.
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
correct?
1.3 this year. But
so it helps to
huge.
have conservatives who are supposed to be fiscally conservative, but also to know that they're looking out for your best interest. I know I elect somebody like you, and I think okay, they're going to look at that correctly with the same conservative eyes. Tell our viewers what do you think, as somebody who's obviously run for office before in this position, what do we need here in Sarasota to help support whoever's running and whoever is going to bring that parental rights first, sort of smaller government, education over indoctrination? What are those people going to need in order to be successful here?
A couple things. What I would be looking for is someone who's unapologetically brave. And again, I think understanding how we got here, and it really, we've talked about this a lot. It's about we've been raised to be very polite people, and that's been exploited. And I think that it's important to understand that the activists on the left are ruthless. I will make no mistake. Yeah. And they are coming for your children for an intent that is oftentimes in direct conflict of what you're sending your kids to school for. Right. I think across the nation you see that. You're seeing the rapid decline of academics and proficiencies because it's been because all of the DEI initiatives have really curtailed the focus and energy and professional development. It's completely overtaken everything. And so having people who are not uncomfortable having that conversation, not being afraid of being called whatever name, because it really doesn't mean anything because everyone's been named something, but that also will dive in and fight hard. Not just, when you're running for office, I think we see so many people who say it's the party or that, no, you're running for office, you need to grind and work hard, and put together your platform and stand by it and believe it. And I think to me those are the most important pieces. And I want to make sure you can say a lot of the things that everyone says, right? Like I'm going to be a fiscal conservative, which is important, and that you're going to be someone that stands up for parental rights, and that there's limited government principles, and the role is a partnership with parents. It is not, we don't send the message that schools are a safe place and, give the intent that home's not. Right. So a lot of those things are what I see oftentimes, because I deal with candidates across the country, that they'll have that on their platform, but they don't necessarily have the grit to fight. And sometimes it's just coaching. A lot of it's the stuff we talked about before is like the community coming in behind them once they are elected. But I think we need to, and you need someone who can raise money that's going to work really hard. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a part of it. It's marketing. You need it, especially in a place where you're the local media is going to do you no favors. And that's okay because nobody trusts the media anyway.
That's why we exist.
That's exactly right. But I think that we want people. I think a diverse board, like I said, is really valuable. Having someone who has school-age children is really helpful because the fire in your belly is legitimate, and those. And I was there. I mean, we talk about the COVID policies, the masking mandate. I mean, that made a huge impact on a lot of our children's lives, or a lot of families, myself included, and those are the kind of things. But there are a lot of policies that we oversee and we take action on that have direct implications on students and families, and that is our primary mission. We certainly have staff to work. Human capital is very important. There's a lot of varieties, but having people who are ultimately, above all else, willing to fight and stand up for the protection of our families and parental rights, and make sure that students are getting a quality education that loves our country and that's rooted in their ability to be productive members of society is crucial.
So that's your platform.
So there you go.
That's your platform.
And you better do it. You better not just walk
fire in your belly, students first, courage, authenticity, raising money.
Absolutely.
And that sounds like,
listen, I always tell, there's a lot of people will be, you don't see too often people ready to run that are probably the best ones to run. Right?
They have to be kind of
lured into it, and I talk to those candidates all the time, and I think that there's questions. How am I going to do this with my family? What's the how much time of a commitment is it? I worked in the private sector the entire time that I've been on the board. I have 3 kids. It's crazy. It's fun though. It's crazy though. But certain jobs accommodate it. Some don't. I've always been in kind of a sales kind of position or lead my own schedule. That's not necessarily the place for. It just depends. It depends. And those are the questions, but a lot of people get worried about the cancel culture piece of it, which I'm so glad to say. I think that tide has gone. It's still very much there, and trust me, they will try. But again, that's where you go. I think I encourage people to go
harder.
Exactly.
Go
harder.
That's it.
Exactly.
Full throttle.
Own it. I think
Bring it.
And that's the part there that it's allowed too many people to cave in the past, and because of the behavior that has been allowed to persist, and again, people are going to do what they're going to do. I think that it makes people shy away from it. Are the best people who would probably be great at it. So I always say, you'll surprise yourself. People will talk themselves out of it. But if you have that yearning to do something, then seriously consider it. And then you have to look at the playing field, because we don't want to cannibalize each other realistically.
Right.
But at the same time, whoever's when you're looking at 2 candidates, we need the fighter. I don't need another establishment, polite.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying be nasty, but stand up for what you believe.
Well, there's a difference between being professional and being go along to get along.
Absolutely.
We did go along to get along in this district for a long time. That's how we ended up with a lot of things that were not policies, but done through the back door.
That's how you end up with a Democrat socialist sitting on your board, Westboro County. I'm going to keep calling y'all out. I love y'all.
No, it's crazy.
It's tough.
And it's very hard to, and here's the most important part, and that's why I feel like the next 12 months are critical in setting the stage, is codifying all of the stuff that we've really established. My journey was, I would bring things up and it would fail 3-2. I'd say, Bridget, if I made a motion and the sky was blue, it would fail 3-2 because Bridget brought it up.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the state legislature. So I worked on a lot of legislation for the education side that I couldn't get passed as my local board.
Which is absolutely crazy, because that is your job as a sitting board member.
But it was really, they were very common sense, but I think that's when there was a massive disconnect. No one really was paying attention to education at that point. Right. So that same level. It was mostly on the school choice expansion, but there was nothing else really focused on what's happening in schools. So now our job is to put in place the policies that really do solidify what occurred in state legislation. Because that... Still, many counties in the state of Florida have all sorts of things that, it's almost like the action was taken, but where it's the most meaningful, which is local, has not really caught up.
Yeah.
And so I am very focused on making sure that's aligned in this in Sarasota County, despite all of the activism, which is fine. Bring it. I won't stop.
Right.
And I feel very confident that we have a board that will share that mission.
And I feel like it becomes more impactful as we see Trump's call to really decentralize education from the Department of Education. Local is going to be more important. 100%. Do you welcome that as somebody who sits on a board and drives that? I think you do.
Yes. I think because, even the closer you are to the people you serve, the more impact you're going to have, the more impact you're going to feel. And when you're talking about education, you need to be close to the families because that's where it all works. And so I'm obviously a huge supporter of school choice. I've always supported that. I think it's interesting to see enrollment. And, I'm on the board, so of course I want to try to make Sarasota County the best option. But there's been a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work that needed to be changed. In order for people to have the confidence and trust to bring their kids to our schools. And I think for too long, unions or people who have sat on boards have taken that for granted. They just think that, if you have to be financially well off to go somewhere else, and I think that's wrong. Right. But you are seeing enrollment decline across the country, across the state.
It is.
I think I read somewhere that it's looking at 5% decline across the entire country, which is extraordinary. Wow. But we still have 90% around that are educated in our traditional public schools across the country, which means you can't just abandon them. And they can't be utilized as the left's activism center. So we do need to fight because it's the cohort that our kids grow up in. It's the people that we're working with. It's the people in your neighborhoods. It's your future employees. I mean, and business owners. We go on. And most importantly, future voters who are going to be leading our country. So I take it very seriously. And I think that we need to make sure we have people that are going to preserve those policies. We'll fight very hard for that, but having people show up in the next 12 months, pay attention. Don't believe everything you read in the mainstream media because it's not going to be even remotely close to the truth.
Nope, exactly.
And I'm glad you guys are doing this.
When you run for office, you have your number on your pamphlet and on your website. Give them a phone call and ask them the question. Don't just assume something in the news or you read it in the paper, the local paper.
Up.
Ask the question and make sure you connect what they say while they're on the campaign trail to what they do while they're in office. Yes. So if they are currently in office and they're rerunning, make sure you're connecting to the two. And if they are running for the first time, make sure you're keeping them accountable for what they say while they're running for office. And once they get in, you're holding them accountable, but also supporting them when they finally sit in the seat.
100%. And you can, again, but supporting them is reminding them what they ran on. And because you're drinking from a fire hose when you get elected. And I work with a lot of new school board members, and there's really no roadmap. And again, except the kind of the groupthink marching orders that we've seen through the school board associations for so long. And that's why boards are the way they are, and that's why you see the same problems.
They kind of tell you not to, push the envelope, not to rock the boat a little bit.
They want unanimous votes,
which is
don't
question
crazy.
Anything. Just go with the flow.
That groupthink doesn't work. Well, and as you said, Bridget, I feel like you trailblazed in a big way, so it makes it somewhat easier. But these new people, these new people that we get elected that we dearly love, it's like they also need to feel our support as well as the accountability arm of that. It's easy to get the word out to them, whether you're emailing them, when you pick up the phone and call them. Showing up to a school board meeting has never been easier. Literally, you go online, you fill out a speaker's card, you come in, We
might be changing that for now because we can't get it. But
or you come 30 minutes early, you fill out a speaker's card, you come in, you're sitting in an air-conditioned building. I think we need to see more of, grandparents, aunts, uncles, educators. I think even, some of your older students, bring them, let them see how this works. It is eye-opening. So it's very easy to get the agenda. You have only one meeting, I think, a month plus a town hall. So they travel.
And
workshops. Dial in. You can watch the workshop with an earbud in. I'm not saying you should do this at work, but I do it sometimes. And I have an earbud in. I'm listening to the workshop.
You can watch them on demand.
Yes,
by the way. There are a lot of ways to get tuned in. I think that having certain people that can summarize what was happening is very helpful as well. And again, the encouragement goes such a long way. And I think that even if you can't show up, a message ahead of time, and I think that's what's so important. I can hear people say all the time, this is our community, but I'm tapped into our community at large. And it is, right now, it's not being reflected in our board chambers by any stretch of the imagination. And listen, I applaud those people for showing up. Good for them. And I know that also people show up in different ways and communicate in different ways. And sometimes you can cycle out with different people showing up because they're long. It's a large investment in time.
Yeah.
And most of our families are going to be, on the ballpark or making dinner or driving, shuttling kids from here and there. And so I understand that. So there's a lot of different ways to show up. And I want to encourage people that it's not only being at the board meetings. It's valuable.
It's impactful, yes. But
for sure.
An email or a phone call is just as impactful.
Absolutely. Just a reminder. And encourage your friends and family and community members to do the same because the biggest thing that I worry about is the false narratives permeate so frequently that people begin to think their truth, despite us not trusting media.
Right.
And so if you do have people, the value of someone showing up in your community or in your group of friends or in your organization is that they can come back and report back to what's actually happening and make people aware of what action items or calls to action need to be happening.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of value in that. And maybe you guys pull the straw. Who's going to go tonight? I don't know. We love to see people there. But, and like you mentioned, just to, support and congratulations or whatever.
Yes.
But as long as it's warranted, I'm not saying like it just needs to be cheerleaders, rah, rah. But it really does straighten the backbone and allow people to say, I'm gonna fight a little bit harder next time or go fight even more, right? Because I've seen a lot of people fight on the campaign trail and then they get into office and then they kind of get worn out.
Yes.
Remind them why they were elected and it will go a long way.
It'll go a long way.
Spaghetti.
Yeah.
Spaghetti. Get over the heat and they melt.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
it's
real.
hard.
But
Well, and we said it when we went to the Trump headquarters for election night. We were there was like a moment of, and then we were like,
Oh, no.
it's really starting now.
well, that's the part. That's a really important part. Being on the opposition or the minority side, whether we're talking about in any politics, the energy is very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have people who are fighting, et cetera. And then the governing side is now. I love what's happening right now because it's like we're winning every single day, and he's so much fun. Like watching press conferences, it's funny. So I love it. It's complex. It's gonna be. I'm so sad for the day that. I don't. What politics? Hopefully, it's still. How will he even?
Who's going to be the character? Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's why I'm like, we need a bench.
right. So, that's hard. It's a hard
bench.
one to follow, but
Yes.
it has allowed people to get engaged and understand what's going on and why it's so important to be involved. And so I think, I think that when you're in the governing side, some things do take kind of long. And so there's got to be an element of faith, but that's where it's the responsibility of communicating. I know that when we flipped the board, I think we were focused on getting so much stuff done. We weren't articulating how much we were getting done very quickly. And that's a good lesson learned, right? So to make sure that people understand all of the different things and celebrate them with wins, because there was a lot of overhaul, and there continues to be. And so making sure that's being articulated. But the energy, a lot of times, you find it when it's on the opposition.
Yeah.
And we don't, but again, it's not the battle isn't just an election, or it's not when we get that. It's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
And so think of it that way. You are always in the fighting mode, that we have to make sure we put every amount of energy in protecting our children and ensuring that our education institutions, taxpayer-funded education institutions, are not utilizing our money to indoctrinate kids or push some radical ideology or anti-American ideology, any of that. That's not what any of us want.
Yes.
And we've seen the results of it, and it has not been good. So
Yes. Well, and Allie and I, one of the things that we're doing with Coastal Conservative News is we noticed when running for office, it's very hard to have somebody, an independent in that we're not bought and paid for by a larger organization, to be able to push the information out to people. Now with the touch of a click, we've seen it with X.
Yep.
We see it with now Facebook's getting a little better, Instagram, TikTok, we're even using TikTok for that. We want to be able to be that voice that comes out to the public and says, this is what you need to pay attention to here in Sarasota or Hillsborough County, kind of giving a different avenue to get the information out there. So we're happy to kind of work with any elected official that wants to try to get on our show to be able to put that information out. I'm glad you came, because I feel like the next couple weeks there's going to be a lot of rhetoric that you're going to hear about Karen Rose's appointment. Mm-hmm. It's really not. It's not all that people are trying to make it out to be. It was the governor's decision, and I'm grateful.
And that's what he's elected to do, and that's their right. And that, I mean, and I think really right now we have a very competent superintendent. Our job is to, I'm always going to trust but verify. I mean, that's always my job. It's not just cheerleading, but I will say I've seen a lot of superintendents over the years, and I'm very happy with the focus and the team that they put in place, because it really is. They moved at Mach 10, like I've always messed that up. Speed and because there were a lot of deficiencies before this superintendent came in place, and there was we're a very well-funded district. There was no reason for any of them. Outside of that, there was just a lack of accountability and a lack of willingness by former board members to really hold that to account. And so it was shaky and rocky, but change necessarily needed to happen. And we're moving forward. Now, when you're doing really well, it makes it hard for, again, the opposition. They have to really grasp for straws to try to find things to be upset about. In the last 5-10 months, everything's really been about what President Trump's been doing and rallies and such. Department
that Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing.
And I was laughing because if it was when parents were coming in, the media would make it out to be something completely different. So. The media is always going to do the media, and I agree with what you guys are saying. Being able to give a counter perspective, an honest perspective, not just counter, but and allow people to understand. But really, I'm biased, but I would argue that local school boards are the most important elected position to a community.
100%.
That and your sheriff, I would argue, are the most critical elected positions. A lot of them play very important roles, but those ones directly impact your life, whether you have children or not, by the way, because your local economy. 100%.
School board, your sheriff, your city council, or your county commission. Those are the top 3 in your local
You'll
backyard.
feel those impacts almost immediately. Bridget, thank you for joining us. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you've been such a trailblazer, and I think our community is going to continue to stand behind. Can't wait to see what you guys do with Karen back in the seat.
Fun.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining this special edition of Coastal Conservative News. You can join us every Friday, 7 p.m. We'll see you guys next time.